The clock struck midnight as I stepped into the dimly lit hallway, starting my night shift at the old, creepy asylum where I worked. The building stood like a dark giant, its old walls filled with countless stories of pain and sadness. As I walked through the winding corridors, I felt a sense of unease, like something bad was going to happen. The silence was heavy, broken only by the distant hum of lights and the echo of my footsteps. The air felt thick, like there was something strange in it, making me shiver. As I reached my post, I braced myself for the long night, knowing that the darkness often made things feel worse than they were. Minutes turned into hours, each moment filled with a growing sense of dread. The asylum seemed to come alive at night, with creaking floorboards and faint whispers that seemed to surround me. I glanced at the security monitors, watching the empty hallways, waiting for something to happen. Suddenly, I saw a flicker of movement, a figure darting across one of the screens. My heart raced as I zoomed in on a patient's room, but the room looked empty, with no one inside. Determined to find out what was going on, I ventured into the corridors, my footsteps echoing through the haunted halls. The flickering lights cast eerie shadows on the peeling wallpaper, and the air grew colder, biting at my skin. Anxiety gnawed at me, urging me to go back, but curiosity pushed me forward. I checked room after room, looking for any sign of the figure I had seen on the monitor. The asylum seemed to change around me, like it was playing tricks on my mind. The walls whispered secrets, their voices filled with torment and sorrow. That's when I heard it. A faint whisper in the distance, barely audible but definitely there. It grew louder, the words twisted and broken, like they were coming from someone mad. Panic gripped me and I followed the haunting voice, guided by an unseen force. The voice led me to a forgotten wing of the asylum, where the air smelled rotten. The flickering lights cast eerie shadows, showing glimpses of broken rooms and rusted bed frames. The whispers grew louder, filling the air with an intensity that threatened to break my mind. In the center of the wing, I found an old rusted door. Its paint was peeling and cracked. Trembling, I pushed it open, revealing a room filled with darkness. As I stepped inside, a sense of doom settled over me, and the door slammed shut behind me, trapping me inside. The room came alive with ghostly figures, their gaunt faces twisted in eternal pain. Their hollow eyes stared into my soul, and their whispers filled the air, their voices a chorus of despair. Fear paralyzed me as they reached out, their cold, ghostly hands brushing against my skin. Desperate to escape, I clawed at the door, but it wouldn't budge. The figures drew closer, their grip tightening around me, pulling me deeper into their world. The room spun, turning into a twisted nightmare of torment and suffering. With each passing moment, I felt myself slipping away, losing my grip on reality. I was trapped in the asylum's clutches, a prisoner of the night, destined to wander its haunted halls forever. The spirits of the asylum's tortured souls had claimed another victim, the unsuspecting worker who dared to work the night shift. As I felt myself being pulled into the darkness, a sudden realization struck me. I reached into my pocket and found my phone, fumbling to turn on the flashlight. The bright light cut through the shadows, and for a moment, the ghostly figures recoiled. With a surge of hope, I pointed the light at the walls, searching for any way out. That's when I saw it, a hidden switch on the wall. I pressed it, and a panel slid open, revealing a narrow passageway. Without hesitation, I squeezed through the opening, the ghostly whispers echoing behind me. I stumbled out into the main hallway, gasping for breath. The asylum was silent again, the oppressive presence gone. Shaking, I made my way back to my post, determined to leave this place forever. But as I reached the exit, something stopped me in my tracks. The security monitors flickered to life, showing the same patient's room, and there, on the screen, was the figure I had seen earlier, still standing in the far corner of that room. The air grew cold again, and I felt a presence closing in. I ran out of the asylum, never looking back, leaving behind the horrors that lurked within its walls. A few years ago, My wife Jenny and I moved into an old house that we later learned really did have a dark history. We had heard the rumors, but really liked the quiet town and the house's old Victorian style. We were so excited about our new home. It had beautiful wooden floors, a cozy fireplace, and a nice big backyard. The neighbors were friendly too, and everything seemed perfect. But within the first few weeks, strange things started happening. It all began with noises in the night. At first it was just small things, a creak here, a thump there. We thought it was just the house settling, but the noises became more frequent and louder. Every night, around midnight, we would hear scratching sounds coming from the attic. It was like something was trying to claw its way through the ceiling. One night, we were woken out of our sleep because the noises were so loud. Jenny turned to me with wide eyes. "Do you hear that?" she whispered. "Yeah," I replied, my heart pounding. "It's coming from the attic." We both lay there, listening to the eerie sounds. It felt like forever before they finally stopped. The next morning, we decided it was time to check the attic. We grabbed a flashlight and slowly climbed the creaky stairs to the attic. The air was cold and musty. Cobwebs hung from the beams and dust covered everything. As we shone the flashlight around, we didn't see anything unusual, just old boxes and forgotten furniture. But then, in the far corner of the attic, I noticed something odd. A section of the wall looked different, like it had been patched up. I walked over and tapped on it. It sounded hollow. "Jenny, I think there's something behind this wall," I said. Jenny came over and we started to carefully pull at the boards. After a few minutes, we managed to create an opening just big enough to crawl through. On the other side, we discovered a hidden room. The room was small and dark, with a single dusty window that let in a sliver of light. It was filled with creepy artifacts, old photographs, strange symbols drawn on the walls, and an old, leather-bound journal lying on a rickety table. I picked up the journal and opened it. The pages were yellowed with age, and the handwriting was messy and frantic. It belonged to one of the previous owners, a man named Henry. As we read the journal, a horrifying story unfolded. Henry wrote about hearing strange noises in the night, just like we did. He described seeing shadowy figures moving through the house and feeling a cold presence watching him. One entry caught my eye. Henry wrote about discovering the same hidden room we were now standing in and finding strange artifacts that seemed to belong to an evil entity. He described the entity as a dark shadow that lurked in the corners of the old home. Jenny and I looked at each other, fear evident in our eyes. "Do you think it's still here?" she asked, her voice trembling. "I don't know," I replied, "but we need to be careful." Later, that night, the noises started again, louder and more menacing than before. It was as if the entity knew we had discovered its secrets. We could hear footsteps moving around the attic, and the scratching sounds grew more frantic. We tried to ignore it, hoping it would go away, but things only got worse. Objects in the house started moving on their own. We would find chairs tipped over, doors slamming shut, and lights flickering. It felt like the entity was trying to scare us out of the house. Another night, as we were getting ready for bed, we heard a loud crash from the attic. We grabbed the flashlight and cautiously made our way upstairs. When we reached the hidden room, we saw that the table with the journal had been overturned, and the eerie artifacts were scattered across the floor. Suddenly, the temperature in the room dropped, and we could see our breath. A dark shadow moved across the wall, and we felt a cold, menacing presence. The shadow seemed to grow, taking shape into a dark humanoid figure with the most terrifying, glowing red eyes. Jenny screamed, and we both ran out of the attic, slamming the door behind us. We could hear the entity pounding on the door, trying to get out. We ran downstairs and called the police, but when they arrived, they found nothing unusual. The hidden room was undisturbed, and the journal was now gone. We knew we couldn't stay in the house any longer. We quickly packed our things and left that night, never looking back. The house was later abandoned, and no one else has dared to move in. To this day, I still think about that house and wonder about the mysterious entity that lurked within its walls. I also wonder what happened to Henry. All I know is that we were lucky to escape with our lives. I stared at the pile of textbooks on my desk, overwhelmed by the weight of college life. Late nights, endless assignments, and the constant pressure to succeed had taken their toll. As I sat in my dorm room, a sense of fatigue washed over me, the weight of exhaustion settling in my bones. The semester had just begun, and the campus buzzed with excitement. But as the days turned into weeks, a strange unease settled within me. The once vibrant campus seemed to darken, its energy fading into a hushed stillness. The hallways of the dormitory echoed with whispers, the voices carried on the wind, their words indecipherable but laden with a sense of foreboding. One evening, as I sat at my desk, studying under the flickering light of the overhead lamp, a chill wind rustled the curtains. I dismissed it as a draft, but a lingering sense of being watched caused a shiver to run down my spine. The room felt heavy with an unseen presence, as if a dormant nightmare waited to be unleashed. Night after night, I lay in bed, tossing and turning, plagued by restless dreams. Visions of shadowy figures and unseen terrors haunted my sleep, their grasp on my subconscious tightening with each passing night. I woke in a cold sweat, the lines between reality and nightmare blurred. As the weeks turned into months, the campus grew more desolate, a ghost town suspended in time. The once packed classrooms dwindled in occupancy, the voices of fellow students fading into distant echoes. The weight of isolation bore down on me, trapping me in a web of solitude and paranoia. One evening, as I trudged through the empty hallways of the dormitory, a strange sound echoed from the room next door. It was a soft scratching, barely audible but distinct in its presence. Curiosity mingled with trepidation as I approached the door, hesitant to confront the unknown. With a trembling hand, I pushed open the door, revealing an empty room. But the scratching persisted, growing louder with each passing moment. I searched the room, my heart pounding in my chest, until my eyes settled on a worn journal hidden beneath a pile of books. As I opened the journal, the words within sent a chill down my spine. The entries spoke of an ancient curse that had befallen the dormitory, a malevolent entity that fed on the dreams and fears of its inhabitants. The journal's author had been consumed by the nightmare, his sanity slipping away with each sleepless night. The realization struck me like a thunderbolt. I had unwittingly become entangled in the dormitory's curse, trapped within its suffocating grasp. The shadows that danced in the corners of my vision were not mere tricks of the light. They were the manifestations of a dormant nightmare that had been awakened. With a newfound determination, I delved deeper into the journal's pages, searching for a way to break the curse. The author spoke of a ritual, a desperate attempt to free himself from the clutches of the nightmare. It required facing one's deepest fears, confronting the darkness head-on. As the night fell, I prepared myself for the ritual. In the darkness of my dorm room, I closed my eyes, allowing my fears to surface. The room grew colder, and the shadows swirled around me, their whispers growing louder and more insistent. But I stood firm, facing the nightmare with unwavering resolve. Suddenly, the room erupted into chaos, a tempest of darkness and despair. The walls trembled, the air crackled with energy, and the nightmare manifested before me in all its horrifying glory. It took the form of a grotesque creature, its eyes filled with an insatiable hunger. With every ounce of strength I could muster, I confronted the nightmare, staring deep into its soulless eyes. Fear coursed through me, threatening to consume my sanity, but I refused to back down. The nightmare recoiled, its grip on me weakening. As the dawn broke, the nightmare dissolved into nothingness, vanishing like a wisp of smoke. I stood in the aftermath. The dorm room returned to its normalcy. The curse had been broken, its power shattered by my determination to confront the darkness. The memories of that turbulent time lingered, etched into my mind, a chilling reminder of the horrors that can lie hidden within the familiar. Thanks for watching. Don't miss out on more spine-chilling tales. Subscribe now for weekly scares. Hit that red button and join our journey into the unknown.